COVID-19 and the lack of support for the arts has made it harder to survive and flourish as a professional musician. And we hope that by sharing our personal experience, we can begin to pool ideas and help support each other. As a young player in music college, it was my hope, and I believe the hope and expectation of many around me at music college, that after graduating I would start to earn a living almost solely from performing. Graduating and then working as something other than a performing musician was generally frowned upon, and a sign that you hadn't really made it. This very narrow criteria for success was limiting and restrictive, and honestly pretty unrealistic in today's world. Because of that, we want to talk a little bit about the other avenues of work that we are fortunate enough to explore alongside performing. So first I wanted to ask Sue if she could explain a little bit about her work as a project manager and what it involves.
So first of all, I think it's really, really important to say that a portfolio musician is simply a musician who has numerous ways of articulating their performance and their creativity. So whether it's blowing through a lump of metal, whether it's teaching, whether it's working with pianos, whether it's doing project management. I've just finished a project with Haddo Arts, for instance, with Macopera, which is the cooperative that the Orchestra of Scottish Opera formed when we were made part-time. In my case, I freelance as well, so I work for the SCO as a community residence project manager, as a freelancer, and for the Lammermuir Festival Opera as well, for their community operas. And the last one we did there was, again, nearly 800 people took part. It's about making music live and making it live and being inspired by the creativity of amateur players, of student players.
For those of us who, I think like me, might feel slightly overwhelmed but excited at the prospect of doing something like that, do you remember how you began, what your first steps were, or if it was very organic?
I think that for me, the challenge of working part-time as a professional playing musician opened up this whole avenue of possibility. It wasn't, before that I had a mortgage, I had a family, I had a full-time job, and I would possibly never have made the switch back to freelancing and to portfolio work had I still been full-time. So for me that was a window of opportunity. And the whole digital world that we're living in now has meant that we can have lots of people from all over the country, from the continent, working with players. So for example, I've just done a Malvern Winds course fully online, and we had Sian Edwards conducting and coaching for the Strauss Wind Serenade. I mean, it's just making those connections, pulling those people in from all these different worlds that you live in as a portfolio musician.
Ian, perhaps you could talk a little bit about what you do alongside playing.
I retrained about 20 years ago to become a piano tuner and repairer, and it was a fairly big step. I saw there was a course going in Newark, near about 100 miles from where I lived, and decided I would go for it. And because I'm not very good at teaching, I haven't got the patience, and I thought there's got to be another way of adding to freelance work and the job I had at the time, and so went and retrained. It was hard work. It was a 3-year course. I managed to keep my job going at the Royal Ballet all through that. It took a lot of driving and jiggering around, but it was worth it in the end, and I've gradually built the work up, and now living in Glasgow, I've now got a relationship with the shop in Paisley where I do work for them, and it's just taken off in the last 3 or 4 years really, and it works perfectly with the playing, because you just fit it around any scheduled playing you've got in. You just drop piano tuning in around it, so there's no upsetting people by cancelling things tonight, and it just seems to work really well.
I was just wondering how you started to spread word that you were a tuner. I guess I don't know how long ago you first started doing it, so I don't know if things have changed and you do it differently now.
Well, I advertised initially through Yellow Pages and things like that, or Yell, but I was also very lucky that playing for a living, you know lots of people who are musicians who have pianos or teach. And I used to lodge in London when we were working down there with a lady who does an awful lot of teaching, and she had an awful lot of pupils, and I would burgle in and go and tune all their pianos when I was not working at the ballet. We used to dash around North London and fit lots of piano tuning in, and only by doing it, you get more and more confident at it and better at it.
Yeah, I have a question for both of you that I think might be useful to people who are considering different career paths to complement their playing. And that is, do you have any advice for yourself for when you were first starting to do project management or piano tuning, things that you wish that you had known when you first started out with that career? Who wants to go?
Things I would have known? No. I think it's just important to give it a go, to just fly by the seat of your pants and see what happens. Because if you put restrictions on yourself, then it's quite daunting to do project management. It's really daunting. Good tech skills, yes, you know, it's good to be able to be computer literate, for instance. It's good to have good phone manner. It's good to be personable. But the most important thing is that you're passionate and that you believe in what you're doing, because if you can persuade other people, the funders, the people you're working with, the people that are going to commission you, that you are super excited about what you're doing, then they will ride with you. They'll come on your journey with you, and that's the most important thing. Don't be frightened of taking a risk. Just do it. We do it all the time as horn players. It's the equivalent of not wanting to play that top C. Are you going to play it or are you going to bottle it? Just do it.
Yeah, I like that sentiment. Is there anything that you wish that you'd known?
Yes, when I first started out, a colleague of mine asked me if I would renovate his parents' piano, and I made a complete hash of it. I was so far as my depth, and that is a great regret that I got ahead of myself really in training. Now I would do it.
Lauren, I have a question for you.
What's your question?
My question is that quite often, I'm working with singers all the time, regardless of where they are in their career, will take lessons. They will continually take lessons, continually go on courses, they'll continually work with repetiteurs. And I think there's a perception out there that once we get a job, we never ever do any of that as instrumentalists. And I know that that isn't the path that you're taking.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about improving, and I think sometimes it feels like it comes from a seed of laziness, because I don't want to be stressed and I don't want it to be hard work. I want it to feel easier. I want it to be like, okay, I know that this is coming up and I know it's going to be fine. So I very much feel, I think similar to the singers that you're describing, that there is no kind of finishing point. And I think that often there is a kind of misconception that if you're still taking lessons, then you can't be that great, but I would completely disagree. I think you can never finish learning, and I think that there's so much information out there and so many different schools of playing and schools of thought and techniques that I feel very enthusiastic, and that's what inspires me to keep playing.